A 911 call taker hears a woman screaming, but the screams are not for herself. They are for her unborn child. On the marble steps of a Boston mansion, 8 months pregnant Anna Davenport is in a fight not just for an inheritance, but for her baby's life. She's in full-blown labor. The woman blocking the door, refusing to call for help, is her dead husband's mistress, Selena. Selena smiles, looks at her watch, and says, "He'll be here in 5 minutes." She isn't talking about the paramedics. She's talking about the judge. This isn't just a domestic dispute. It's a crime scene. And the one thing Selena doesn't know is that the judge's arrival will unearth a secret that will change everything. Life for Anna Davenport was measured in quiet, deliberate brushstrokes. At 34, she was a respected curator at a private Boston art gallery, a job she adored for its silence and history. Her marriage to Richard Davenport was the envy of their circle. Richard was a force of nature, a property developer whose name, Davenport Homes, was synonymous with a new aggressive wave of luxury real Davenport. He hadn't just built a company, he'd built an empire that sprawled from the seaport to Beacon Hill. Their home, a 6-bedroom 19th century brownstone on Louisburg Square, was their sanctuary. It was a house of rich mahogany floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and the scent of old money and fresh flowers. For 6 years, the only thing missing was the sound of footsteps, a sound they desperately craved. After 2 harrowing rounds of IVF, Anna was finally miraculously 8 months pregnant with their first child, a daughter they planned to name Lily. The change in Richard was subtle at first. It started 3 months ago. He, a man who lived on spreadsheets and golf course handshakes, suddenly became secretive. His phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, was now perpetually screened down or in his pocket. "Another late one, honey," Anna had asked one Tuesday, rubbing her swollen belly as he walked in at 10 p.m., smelling of expensive scotch and an unfamiliar sharp perfume. "This new partner, Selena. She's a shark," Richard had replied, kissing her forehead, but avoiding her eyes. "She's handling the new skyscraper deal. It's complicated, incredibly high stakes. She demands everything." "More than me and Lily?" Anna asked, only half joking. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Never. This is all for you two, to secure everything." The last time she saw him alive was a sterile, bright Wednesday morning. He was stressed, his jaw tight. He'd been on the phone in his study all night, the door locked. When he emerged, he looked pale. "I have to go to the new site, the big one downtown," he said. "There's an inspection, a structural issue." "Richard, you look exhausted. Let your foreman handle it," she pleaded, resting her hands on his chest. He held her face, his gaze intense. "I have to handle this one myself, Anna. There are things I need to fix. Just know that I love you. I love you more than you can possibly know." He kissed her a kiss that felt less like "see you tonight" and more like goodbye. 4 hours later, 2 grim-faced police officers were at her door. There had been an accident. A catastrophic failure of a safety railing on the 45th floor. The site was chaotic. The winds were high. Richard, they said, had fallen. He was killed instantly. Anna's world didn't just crack. It atomized. The gilded cage she had so carefully curated the life she had built evaporated in the sterile language of a police report that ruled his death a tragic workplace accident. As she collapsed into a fog of sedatives and grief, one word echoed in her mind: Selena. the name of the shark who had demanded so much of his time. She had no idea how much Selina had truly demanded, or how much she had already taken. The funeral was a blur of black suits, pitying glances, and lilies that smelled so sweet they made Anna nauseous. She stood by the casket, one hand on her belly, the other clutching a single white rose, feeling utterly, profoundly alone. And then she saw her. A woman tall and severe, dressed not in mourning black, but in a sharp, blood-red dress that seemed to defy the very concept of grief. She had platinum blonde hair pulled into a tight architectural bun, and sunglasses so large they covered half her face. She was weeping, but it was a theatrical, ugly weeping that drew all the attention. "Who is that?" Anna whispered to Richard's longtime lawyer, Mr. Peterson, a man who resembled a nervous greyhound. Peterson flinched, adjusting his glasses. That is Ms. Selina Vance, Richard's business partner." The shark. Anna watched as Selina approached the casket, laid a single red rose on it, a stark contrast to Anna's white one, and then turned. She walked directly to Anna, removing her sunglasses. Her eyes were a cold, piercing blue. "You must be the wife," Selina said, her voice a low, smooth contralto. It wasn't a question. "Richard spoke of you, once." Anna, stunned by the audacity, could only stare. "He was a brilliant man," Selina continued, "but too soft, too sentimental." She glanced at Anna's stomach. "He had weaknesses." Before Anna could form a word, Selina turned and glided away, leaving the scent of that sharp, unfamiliar perfume in her wake. A week later, Anna sat in Mr. Peterson's suffocatingly formal office for the reading of the will. She was there with Emily Reed, a young, hungry probate lawyer a friend had recommended. Anna had hired her just in case. Emily, with her sharp eyes and leather-bound notebook, already seemed suspicious. "Now, Anna," Mr. Peterson began shuffling papers. "Richard's original will from 5 years ago is very clear. It leaves the entirety of his estate, including the house, his stock portfolio, and his controlling interest in Davenport Homes to you." Anna breathed a small sigh of relief. "However," Peterson interrupted, his voice cracking, "a new will was filed with my office, just 72 hours before Richard's passing." Emily Reed sat up straight. "Filed by whom?" "By Ms. Selina Vance," Peterson said, his face pale. He cleared his throat and began to read. The new will was a brutal surgical evisceration of Anna's life. It began by invalidating all previous testaments. It described Anna as "my estranged wife," a lie so venomous it stole Anna's breath. It bequeathed to Anna a one-time taxable payment of $250,000. It made no mention of their unborn child. And then the final paragraphs. "To my trusted partner, my confidant, and the true architect of my success, Selina Vance, I leave the remainder of my estate in its entirety. This includes my property at Lewisburg Square, all liquid assets, my art and vehicle collections, and my full controlling interest in Davenport Homes to do with as she sees fit. She alone understands my vision." The room spun. Anna felt the baby kick a sharp, sudden protest. "That's impossible," Anna whispered. "He would never. He loved me. He loved this baby. It's a fake. It's fraud." Mr. Peterson wouldn't meet her gaze. "It is legally attested Mrs. Davenport. It was signed by Richard and witnessed by 2 individuals, notarized by a Mr. Jared Finch. I've checked. It appears binding." Emily Reed snapped her notebook shut. Her voice was ice. "Mr. Peterson, you will provide my office with copies of both wills, the notary's full contact information, and the names of the witnesses by the end of the day, and you will cease all communication with Mrs. Davenport. I will be handling this." She turned to Anna, who was weeping silently. "Anna, go home. Lock your doors. Do not speak to anyone, especially not Ms. Vance. We are contesting this. This isn't a will reading. This is a declaration of war." When Anna got back to the brownstone, there was a new gleaming brass lock on the door. Her key didn't fit. Taped to the heavy oak was a single typed note. "This property is now under the management of the estate of Richard Davenport. All access is prohibited. You have 24 hours to arrange for the removal of your personal effects. S. Vance, Executor." She was 8 months pregnant, a widow, and locked out of her own home. The war had already begun. The next 2 months were a descent into a bureaucratic hell. Selina moved with terrifying speed. She had immediately taken control of Davenport Homes, firing Richard's entire executive team and installing her own people. She moved into the Beacon Hill brownstone, and photos surfaced in a gossip column of her hosting a lavish celebration of life party pictured wearing what looked suspiciously like Anna's pearls. Anna, meanwhile, was forced to move into a small, furnished 2-bedroom apartment paid for by the dwindling remains of her own savings. The $250,000 was frozen, pending the legal challenge. The stress was catastrophic. Anna developed preeclampsia, a dangerous condition marked by high blood pressure that put both her and the baby at high risk. "You must avoid stress, Anna," her doctor warned, his face grave. "Bed rest is no longer a suggestion, it's a command." But stress was her new reality. Emily Reed, however, was a bulldog. She worked 20-hour days, fueled by coffee and a cold fury at the injustice. "She's sloppy," Emily said, sliding a file across the desk in Anna's cramped apartment. "Selina is arrogant, and arrogant people make mistakes. I'm starting to find them." The first thread Emily pulled was the notary Jared Finch. "Jared Finch doesn't just have a record," Emily said, her eyes gleaming. "He has a history, 2 convictions for fraud, 1 for forgery. He's a professional con artist. And get this, his shell company, Finch Notary Services, received a $50,000 wire transfer from a holding company owned by Selina Vance the day after the will was signed." "So he's a paid-off criminal," Anna said, her heart hammering. "Exactly. Now the witnesses, Mason and Davis, they don't exist, at least not at the addresses listed. They're ghosts." But it was the next discovery that turned the case from fraud to something far darker. Emily had subpoenaed the construction site's records. "Richard's accident," Emily said, her voice dropping. "The site manager, a man named Thomas Brody, was hired by Selina 2 weeks before the incident. He was the one who signed off on the safety of that railing the morning Richard died. And guess what? Mr. Brody vanished. He emptied his bank account and bought a one-way ticket to Belize the day after Richard's death." Anna felt the blood drain from her face. She wouldn't." "She would," Emily said grimly. "She needed Richard's signature on a dozen documents to finalize her takeover of the company. My guess, he wouldn't sign. He was fighting back. So she created a new will, forged his signature, and then removed the obstacle." Anna's grief was suddenly eclipsed by a cold, terrifying rage. This wasn't a tragedy. This was an execution. Emily filed an emergency motion with the probate court, alleging forgery, undue influence, and conspiracy to commit murder. She requested an immediate injunction to freeze all of Richard's assets and remove Selina as executor. The case landed on the desk of Judge Alistair Hayes. Judge Hayes was a man in his late 60s, a legal institution in Boston, known for his acid wit and zero tolerance for courtroom theatrics. He reviewed the motion, then listened to Selina's high-priced lawyers paint Anna as a hysterical gold-digging widow trying to fleece a grieving business partner. "Your Honor," Selena's lawyer argued, "Mrs. Davenport is emotionally unstable. She is lashing out. Ms. Vance is the true victim here, left to clean up the mess of a company her partner nearly bankrupted." Emily Reed stood. "Your Honor, Ms. Vance is the mess. She has already liquidated over $2 million in assets, and we believe she is actively destroying evidence. This isn't just about a will, it's about a murder. We have evidence the notary is a paid felon and the site manager is a fugitive. We need to secure the house. We need to secure Richard's private study." Judge Hayes stared at Selena, his eyes unreadable. "You claim, Ms. Vance, that Richard's private safe in his study was empty when you took possession of the house." "That's correct, Your Honor," Selena said smoothly. "Richard must have emptied it himself." "Unlikely, as he was dead," Hayes muttered dryly. "The speed of your actions, Ms. Vance, is alarming. I am granting a temporary injunction. All assets are frozen. However, I will not rule on removing you as executor without more. I am ordering an emergency in situ inspection of the property. Friday, 10:00 a.m. That's 2 days from now. I will be there personally. You, Ms. Vance, will be there. You, Ms. Reed, and your client will be there. We are going to open that safe. We are going to walk through that study, and I am going to see for myself what is going on." He banged his gavel. "Court adjourned." Selena shot Anna a look of pure, undiluted hatred. Anna didn't care. It was the first glimmer of hope she'd had in months. She just had to hold on for 48 more hours. The 48 hours were the longest of Anna's life. The stress of the hearing had sent her blood pressure soaring. She was on strict bed rest, but sleep was impossible. She was a prisoner in her small apartment while that woman was in her home. In her bed. Thursday night, a new, terrifying anxiety gripped her. "My medication," she whispered, sitting bolt upright in bed. She fumbled for her phone, calling Emily. "Emily, I'm an idiot. My hospital bag, my go bag, it's still at the house. I packed it 2 months ago and left it in the nursery. But my medication, my emergency pre-eclampsia pills, they're in my nightstand. The bottle from the specialist. I left it. I have a prescription here, but the pharmacy says the refill isn't for 2 more days. I need those pills." "Anna, no," Emily said, her voice sharp with alarm. "You cannot go there. I will deal with it. I will file a motion for retrieval of personal property." "Emily, the judge's visit is tomorrow at 10. By the time you file, it'll be too late. I'll be fine. I'll go at 9:30. You'll be meeting me there for the judge anyway. I'll just ask her for the bag and my pills. She's a monster, but she won't deny a pregnant woman her medication. Please, Emily. I can't risk my blood pressure." Emily was silent for a long moment. "Anna, this is a terrible idea. But if you are going, do not go inside. Do not engage. Ask for your property, and that is it. I will be there at 9:45. Wait for me. Do you understand?" "I understand." Anna lied. She couldn't wait. The panic was choking her. She needed those pills. She needed that bag. She needed for 1 second to feel like she had some control over her own life. On Friday morning at 9:15 a.m., Anna paid a taxi to drop her at the corner of Louisburg Square. The walk to her front door felt like a mile. The city was loud, the air humid. She felt a dull, persistent ache in her lower back, but she dismissed it as stress. At 9:30 a.m., she stood on her own doorstep, a place she hadn't been in 2 months. Her hand was trembling as she pressed the new, unfamiliar doorbell. She heard footsteps, then the sound of the new heavy deadbolt being drawn. The door opened. Selena Vance stood there, framed in the doorway. She was wearing one of Richard's expensive dark silk robes. She held a steaming mug of coffee. She looked perfectly infuriatingly at home. Anna, she said, her lips curling into a smirk. You're early. The judge isn't here yet. Trying to sneak in and plant evidence, it's pathetic. Selina, please, Anna said, her voice shaking from the exertion and the humiliation. I'm not here for that. I left my medication. In the nightstand. My preeclampsia medication. And my hospital bag is in the nursery. I need my bag. Selina took a long, slow sip of her coffee, her cold eyes appraising Anna. She saw the sweat on Anna's brow, the tremor in her hands. Medication, a hospital bag. That's a new one? Selina sneered. A little on the nose. Don't you think manufacturing a medical emergency saved the drama for Judge Hayes? He'll appreciate the performance. I'm not performing. Anna's voice rose, desperation creeping in. You can watch me. Just let me run up to the bedroom. It will take 2 seconds. Please, Selina. It's for the baby. Selina's face hardened. The baby. You mean your last, desperate little meal ticket? No. You are not setting 1 foot in my house. Not until the judge is here to supervise. You can wait on the sidewalk. Or in your car. Or wherever it is you've been nesting. She made to close the door. No, wait, Anna cried, and as she lunged forward to stop the door, a sudden blinding pain ripped through her abdomen. It was a pain so total, so all-consuming that it stole her breath. She gasped, clutching her belly. And then she felt a hot, unmistakable gush of water down her legs. Her water had broken. Oh, God, she panted, her eyes wide with terror. No, it's too early. It's not time. When she stumbled her back, hitting the hard stone of the doorframe. The pain came again, a brutal clenching fist. She was in labor. Selina, she gasped, sliding down the doorframe to sit on the cold marble step. Selina, call 911. Now. The baby is coming. Selina Vance looked down at Anna, at the puddle spreading on the steps, at the woman's face, contorted in agony. And she smiled. Selina didn't move. She didn't reach for a phone. She simply stared, a look of fascinated contempt on her face. Wow, Selina breathed, almost in admiration. You are really committing to this, aren't you? Preeclampsia water breaking. You even brought the prop water. What's next? Are you going to crown right here on the mat? You'll ruin the Italian marble. You twisted witch, Anna screamed, as another contraction seized her, forcing the air from her lungs. This isn't fake. I'm in labor. You have to help me. She was begging the woman who had stolen her husband her home, and was now apparently willing to watch her baby die on the doorstep. Help you, Selina said, her voice dropping to a cold whisper. She stepped out of the doorway, physically blocking the entrance. She pulled the heavy door partially shut behind her, leaving just a crack. I'm not helping you do anything, Anna. You are not faking a preterm labor on my property to trick a judge. It's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. A few neighbors walking their dogs in the exclusive square stopped to stare. They saw the heavily pregnant woman on the steps crying in pain, and the glamorous blonde woman in the silk robe blocking the door. Is everything all right? One neighbor, an elderly woman, called out. Selina shot her a dazzling, reassuring smile. It's fine, Mrs. Peabody. Just a family dispute. She's unstable. Her lawyer is on the way to collect her. Please don't concern yourself. Mrs. Peabody hesitated, then, not wanting to be involved, shuffled on. Anna was terrified. The pain was coming faster now, one on top of the other. She was 8 months pregnant, high risk, and giving birth on a sidewalk. Please, she sobbed, all pretense of strength gone. My baby, you're killing my baby. Just call an ambulance. You don't even have to let me in. Just call 911. No, Selina said flatly. She crossed her arms. I'm not calling anyone. My lawyers are on their way. The judge is on his way. He will be here in... She theatrically checked a solid gold watch on her wrist, Richard's watch. 3 minutes, and he will see exactly what you are. A desperate liar. He'll see you. Anna spat, finding a core of rage inside the pain. He'll see you for the monster you are. He'll see a woman protecting her property from a hysterical trespasser, Selina corrected. Now I suggest you be quiet. You're making a scene. A black sedan screeched to a halt at the curb. Emily Reed jumped out her phone, already in her hand. She took in the scene Anna crumpled on the steps, Selina standing over her like a sentinel, and sprinted. Anna, oh my God, Emily screamed. She was already dialing 911. Yes, I need an ambulance at Lewisburg Square number 12. My client is in preterm labor. She has severe preeclampsia. The woman at the house is refusing her entry or aid. She's faking, Selina shouted at Emily. It's a trick. You're her lawyer. You're probably in on it. She's crowning you sociopath, Emily screamed back, kneeling beside Anna, who was now panting, her face ashen. What is the meaning of this? The voice was not Emily's. It was a deep, authoritative boom that cut through the morning air. A second car, a dark, nondescript Ford, had pulled up behind Emily's. A man in a simple dark suit stood there, his face a mask of thunder. Beside him stood a younger man carrying a briefcase. It was Judge Alastair Hayes. Selina's composure finally fatally cracked. Her face went white. This was not how she had planned this. Your Honor, Selina stammered, rushing forward. Thank goodness you're here. This woman, she's trespassing. She's faking an illness to prejudice you. I was just protecting the property until you arrived. Judge Hayes, a father of 4 and a grandfather of 7, didn't even look at Selina. He walked directly past her and knelt on the marble step beside Emily, loosening his tie. Ma'am, what's your name? He asked Anna, his voice suddenly surprisingly gentle. Anna Davenport, she gasped. Judge Alastair Hayes, help is on the way, Anna. You're going to be all right. The paramedics are 2 blocks away. I heard the call on my clerk's scanner. Now breathe with me. Ms. Reed, get me a coat. Something. Anything. He looked up, and his gaze fell on Selina, who was frozen by the door. His voice turned to Arctic steel. Ms. Vance, you were informed she was in medical distress. I thought she was lying. Your Honor, you are a mandatory reporter, Ms. Vance. You are a human being. You saw a woman in this state, and you blocked the door. The judge's face was pale with a rage that was far more terrifying than any gavel. You will not move from that spot. Sirens wailed, and paramedics swarmed the steps, pushing past the judge and a frozen Selina. As they began to lift Anna onto a gurney, her purse, which Emily had grabbed, fell open. A small silver digital audio recorder skittered across the marble. Emily Reed paused, frowning. She picked it up. Anna, pale and trembling, her eyes squeezed shut in pain, saw the recorder in Emily's hand. Richard, she panted, her voice a thread. Richard gave it to me, weeks before. He was scared. He said, keep this safe, never leave it in the house. I put it in the lining of my purse. I forgot. Emily's eyes went wide. She looked at the recorder. She looked at Judge Hayes. And then she looked at Selina Vance, who was staring at the small silver device as if it were a bomb. Your Honor, Emily said, her voice shaking with a new terrible understanding. I believe we just found the evidence Ms. Vance was really trying to keep out of the house. What is that, Ms. Reed? The judge asked. I think, Emily said, her thumb hovering over the play button. It's Richard Davenport's real testimony. She pressed play. The first sound was fumbling a click, and then Richard Davenport's voice, alive, terrified, and furious, filled the silent, horrified air of Louisburg Square. Richard's voice, "Turn it on! There! Now you listen to me, Selina. It's over. I know what you did." Selina's voice, "Richard, darling, put that stupid thing away. You're being dramatic. Have a drink." Richard's voice, "No, I'm not having a drink. I spoke to Peterson. I saw the documents you filed. The forged will. You moved my entire portfolio into that shell company of yours. You were planning to ruin me, to leave me with nothing." Selina Vance, standing on the step, let out a small, strangled sound. Selina's voice on the recorder no longer smooth but cold and hard as iron. "You were never going to leave her. I gave you 6 months. 6 months to leave the little mouse and the thing she's carrying. You're weak, Richard. You always were. I built that company, not you. I made the connections. I took the risks. And I will have it." Richard's voice, It's fraud, Selina. It's grand larceny. I'm going to the police." Selina's voice, "No, you're not. You're going to that construction site tomorrow, the one on State Street. You're going to meet with my site manager, Mr. Brody, and you're going to sign over the final shares officially. You're going to make me your partner, and you're going to make that fraudulent will a reality. You're going to cut Anna out." Richard's voice, "I will never do that. I'd rather die." A pause. Then Selina's voice, chilling, calm, and final. Selina's voice, "Don't be so dramatic, Richard, but you're right about one thing. You're going to that site tomorrow, and if you don't sign, well, accidents happen on construction sites all the time. A weak railing, a high wind, it would be a tragedy." The recording clicked off. Silence. The paramedics had paused mid-lift. Mrs. Peabody, the neighbor, was standing on the sidewalk, her hand over her mouth. Judge Hayes stood slowly, his face ashen. Selina Vance turned. She didn't run. She simply turned and tried to walk quickly back into the house. "Don't let her close that door," Judge Hayes roared. A police officer who had arrived with the ambulance as standard procedure for a 911 call with a dispute flag grabbed Selina's arm. "Let go of me!" she shrieked, her mask of cold control shattering into 1,000 pieces. She clawed at him. "That's fake. It's a fake. You have no right." "Ms. Vance," Judge Hayes said, his voice shaking with pure constitutional rage. "You are in contempt of my court. You are in violation of a federal injunction, and based on the evidence I have just heard, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and likely the murder itself of Richard Davenport." He pointed a finger at the officer. "Officer, detain this woman. She is a flight risk and a danger to the community. Read her rights. My clerk will call the district attorney's office. Right now." As the officer snapped handcuffs onto Selina's wrists, she locked eyes with Anna, who was being lifted onto the gurney. The hatred in her gaze was absolute. You bitch," Selina hissed. "You and your parasite, you ruined everything." Anna, weak, pale, but breathing, met her gaze. "He loved me," she whispered. "He loved his child. And he beat you." As the ambulance doors closed, the last thing Anna saw was Selina Vance, the shark, the architect, being forced into the back of a police car, her silk robe twisted her face a mask of defeat. The judge stood on the steps, his phone to his ear, securing the crime scene, the home that was finally hers. The next 72 hours were not a gentle dawn, but a brutal, blinding flash of fluorescent lights, beeping monitors, and the metallic smell of anesthetic. Anna was rushed into an emergency C-section, her body finally succumbing to the trauma and the ravages of severe pre-eclampsia. She was a ship breaking apart in a storm, and the surgeons were in a desperate race to save both her and her passenger. She remembered nothing of the birth. She was unconscious, a battlefield. When she finally surfaced, the world was a dull gray haze. Her entire body ached with a profound, heavy emptiness. A tube was in her throat. She was in the ICU. Her first conscious thought was a jolt of panic so primal it made the heart monitor beside her shriek, "Lily!" She tried to sit up, a gasp catching in her raw throat. A nurse rushed in, a kind woman with tired eyes. "Easy, Mrs. Davenport. Easy, honey. You're okay. You're in the ICU. You had a very rough time." "My baby," Anna's voice was a dry, broken croak. "She's a fighter," the nurse said, her voice softening. "A little girl, 4 pounds, 2 ounces. She's in the NICU just down the hall. She's premature, but she's breathing on her own. She's feisty." Anna wept, a raw, silent cascade of tears. They were tears of relief, grief, and a terror so deep she couldn't name it. She had survived. Her daughter had survived. When she was stable enough to be moved from the ICU, her first request was to see her daughter. They wheeled her weak and trembling to the neonatal intensive care unit. The room was a quiet symphony of beeps and hushed whispers, and there in a small, clear plastic incubator was Lily. She was impossibly small, a tiny, perfect bird, her skin almost translucent. Wires delicate as threads monitored her every breath. Anna reached a trembling hand through the porthole of the incubator, her fingers brushing her daughter's tiny, grasping hand. Lily's fingers, no bigger than a grain of rice, curled around her mother's. In that moment, the ice that had encased Anna's heart for months finally cracked. This tiny fighting soul was her anchor. This was why she had survived. "Hey, Lily," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It's Mommy. I'm here. I'm so sorry. But I'm here now." Emily Reed arrived later that day, looking as if she hadn't slept in a week. She carried a stack of legal files, but her first words were not about the case. "She's beautiful, Anna," Emily said softly, standing beside the incubator. "She's tiny," Anna breathed. "She's a Davenport." Emily smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "They're tough, like her mom." She pulled up a chair. "Now, when you're ready, we should talk. Because it's over, Anna. It's done." As Anna watched her daughter sleep, Emily laid out the astonishing, rapid collapse of Selena's empire. "The audio recording was the key," Emily explained, her voice low and sharp. "The second Judge Hayes heard it, he called the DA personally. The DA's office moved on it within the hour. They didn't just arrest Selena. They put out an international bulletin for Thomas Brody. The U.S. Marshals working with the Belizean authorities had him in custody less than 12 hours later. He thought he was safe." "He confessed?" Anna asked. "He sang?" Emily said, her voice grim. "He gave a full 20-page confession. Selena had approached him a month before Richard's death. She knew Brody had a gambling problem and was in deep debt. She offered him $200,000 in cash. His job was to sabotage the specific safety railing on the 45th floor viewing platform. He was to loosen the anchor bolts just enough that they would hold for an inspection but fail under the weight of a grown man." Anna felt sick. "Selena," Emily continued, "was the one who insisted Richard do a personal inspection that day, citing major partner concerns. She made sure he was alone. Brody was watching from the floor below. He said he heard the scream. He was on a plane to Belize 6 hours later. The $200,000 was already in an offshore account. And the notary Finch, Jared Finch, was easier. The second the cops showed up at his office, he folded. He admitted Selina paid him $50,000 to notarize the forged will. She provided him with a high-resolution, digitally scanned copy of Richard's signature from another document. He just copied and pasted it, then applied his seal. He said she laughed and told him, "The wife is a sentimental idiot. She'll be too busy grieving to ever notice." "She underestimated you," Anna whispered, looking at Emily. "She underestimated you," Emily corrected. "She underestimated what a mother would do." The trial of Selina Vance began 6 months later. It was a media circus. The press had dubbed her the Beacon Hill Black Widow. The courtroom was packed every single day. Selina, stripped of her designer clothes and power suits, sat in a drab, ill-fitting prison jumpsuit. She was thinner, paler, but her eyes were the same. Cold, arrogant, and filled with a reptilian hatred for Anna, who sat in the front row every day. The prosecution, led by a shark of an assistant district attorney, built an ironclad case. Thomas Brody was the star witness. He wept on the stand, describing how Selina had preyed on his weakness. She said, "Make it look like a tragedy, not a murder," Brody whimpered, avoiding Selina's gaze. She was a monster. She didn't even blink. She just talked about structural integrity and wind shear. She was planning it like a building project. Jared Finch's testimony was clinical, detailing the ease of the forgery. Mrs. Peabody, the neighbor, testified. "I knew something was terribly wrong," she said, her voice trembling. "The poor girl was in agony. But Ms. Vance, she smiled. She told me to move along. It was the smile that I'll never forget. It was triumphant." The paramedic who had arrived on the scene was next. "In my 15-year career," he said, his voice tight with anger, "I have never witnessed such a callous disregard for human life. We were pushing past Ms. Vance. She was physically obstructing the doorway, calling Mrs. Davenport a liar and a performer as her patient was actively crowning on a cold marble step." But the trial's climax, the moment that silenced the entire courtroom, was the playing of the 2 recordings. First, the 911 call from Emily, her voice frantic and high-pitched. "My client is in preterm labor. The woman at the house is refusing her aid. She's blocking the door." And then Richard's. His voice alive, terrified, furious, filled the room. "I know what you did." And Selina's cold and hard as iron. "Accidents happen on construction sites all the time. It would be a tragedy." A juror in the back row let out a strangled sob. Selina's defense attorney, who had tried to argue the recording was a deepfake, that Richard was abusive and suicidal, and that Anna had orchestrated the entire thing, simply sat down and put his head in his hands. The jury was out for 90 minutes. When they returned, the foreman stood. Anna gripped Emily's hand, her knuckles white. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree, how do you find guilty? On the charge of felony murder in the first degree, how do you find guilty? On the charge of multiple counts of fraud and forgery, how do you find guilty?" Anna let out a breath she felt she had been holding for 8 months. She wept silently as Selina simply stared ahead, her face a perfect empty mask. Judge Alistair Hayes, in a rare move, presided over the sentencing himself. He had been a witness to the final monstrous act, and he was there to deliver the final judgment. He stared at Selina for a full minute before he spoke. "Ms. Vance," he said, his voice not loud, but carrying to every corner of the room. "You are a monument to human avarice. You are a vacuum of humanity. You did not just steal a man's money. You stole his life. You did not just steal his company. You stole his name. And then, with a cruelty that this court finds difficult to comprehend, you attempted to steal the life of his child as well." His voice cracked just once. "I stood on those steps. I saw what you did. You saw a woman in the agony of childbirth, and you smiled. You mocked her pain. You blocked her aid. You are not just a danger to the community, Ms. Vance. You are a danger to the very concept of human decency." Selina finally looked at him, a sneer on her lips. "It is the judgment of this court," Judge Hayes continued, his voice hardening to granite, "that you be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your natural life in a place where your greed, your ambition, and your cold, black heart can harm no one else. You are remanded to the custody of the Department of Correction. We are done here." 3 months after the trial, Anna walked out of the NICU. But this time she wasn't alone. She was carrying a healthy 7-pound Lily bundled in a soft pink blanket. She drove them home. To the brownstone on Louisburg Square, the house which Emily had hired a service to clean, and Selina was silent. It was no longer a home. It was a crime scene. For the first year, Anna and Lily lived in only 3 rooms: the kitchen, the nursery, and Anna's bedroom. The rest of the house, especially Richard's study, remained locked. The mahogany doors were too heavy, the memories too dark. Anna was now impossibly a CEO. Selina's brief catastrophic reign had nearly bankrupted Davenport Homes. Creditors were circling, employees were defecting. Anna, the quiet curator, was grieving, suffering from postpartum depression, and now in charge of a multi-million-dollar empire on the brink of collapse. But Emily stayed. She didn't just stay. She moved in, taking a spare room, becoming COO aunt, and most importantly, friend. Together they worked 20-hour days. They rebuilt. Anna, it turned out, was not a sentimental idiot. She had her husband's steel, but her own quiet, unshakable integrity. She sold off the gaudy, aggressive projects Selina had started. She rehired Richard's old loyal team. She wasn't ruthless, but she was iron. She saved the company. It was on Lily's first birthday that Anna finally stood before the locked door of Richard's study. She unlocked it. The air was stale, smelling of old paper leather and the faint, heartbreaking scent of Richard's scotch. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of light. On his desk was a photo of him and Anna, taken on their honeymoon, both of them smiling, full of a future that would never come. Her eyes went to the safe. The large black antique safe that Judge Hayes had ordered opened only to find it empty. Selina had cleaned it out. But as Anna stood there, her husband's final words from the recording echoed in her head. "I have to fix things." He had been scared. He knew what she was. He gave her the audio recorder. He wouldn't have just let it all go. Selina, she thought, was greedy. She would have gone for the obvious, the safe. But Richard was smart. Anna ran her fingers not on the safe, but around it. She traced the ornate mahogany wainscoting on the wall behind the safe. Her fingers, the fingers of a curator trained to feel for imperfections, brushed against a small, loose piece of ornamental molding. She pushed. A tiny, almost invisible panel clicked. It popped open. It was a hidden compartment no bigger than a shoebox built into the wall. A place Selina, in her arrogant, destructive sweep, would never have thought to look. Inside was a single thick manila envelope. Her hands shook so violently she could barely open it. Inside were 2 things: a legally bound document and a handwritten letter. The document was Richard's real, final will, dated the day before he died. It was witnessed by Mr. Peterson, the terrified lawyer, and by Miguel, his oldest, most trusted construction foreman. It was simple. It invalidated all previous wills. It left 100% of his estate, his company, and all assets to my beloved wife, Anna Davenport, and our child, Lily. But it was the letter that broke her. She sank to the floor, clutching the paper. My dearest Anna, if you are reading this, I am gone. And it means Selena did what I was afraid she would. I am so sorry. I was a fool. I brought a viper into our home and she poisoned everything. I was trying to get her out, trying to undo the financial mess she made, but she is faster and more ruthless than I ever imagined. She thinks she has me cornered. She's forcing me to the construction site tomorrow. I don't know what will happen, but I know I cannot sign the papers she's demanding. I will not give her our company. I will not cut you and our child out. I gave you the recorder. I pray to God you never have to use it. I've hidden this will. It's the real one. It will protect you and Lily. Everything I built for you. Fight for it. Fight for her. Do not let that woman win. You are stronger than you know. You are the strongest person I have ever known. I love you more than you can possibly know. Kiss our daughter for me. Tell her I love her. I will see you both somewhere someday. R. Anna sat on the floor of her husband's study, her daughter gurgling in her carrier in the hallway, and she wept. She wept for the man she had lost, for the terror of his final days, and for the profound, unshakable love he had left behind. He had known. He had been scared. And he had used his final hours to give her the weapons she needed to fight. The story ends not in that dusty study, but 4 years later. The brownstone on Louisburg Square is no longer cold or silent. It's filled with sunlight, the sound of a 5-year-old Lily, who is, as predicted, feisty, banging out a tune on the grand piano, and the smell of cookies baking. Davenport Homes is gone. In its place is the Davenport Lily Foundation. Under Anna's leadership, the multi-million-dollar company has been transformed into a non-profit that builds safe, state-of-the-art, affordable housing for single-parent families. A portion of every project is dedicated to the Richard Davenport Fund for Workplace Safety, ensuring no more accidents ever happen. Anna Davenport stands on a gala stage, a strong, confident woman in her late 30s, her quiet curator's demeanor replaced with the steady gaze of a CEO and philanthropist. We are all, she says, her voice clear and strong, defined by the doors we encounter. Some are open, some are closed. But the most important moments in our lives are the ones where the door is blocked. When we are on the steps in the cold begging for help, and we are told no. My door, she says, her eyes sweeping the room, was blocked by a monster. But that monster showed me what I was made of. She thought I was a mouse. She didn't know I was a mother. A smile touches her lips, a real radiant smile. It is not the door that defines us. It is the fact that we refuse to stay on the steps. It is the fight we put up for ourselves, for our children, and for the truth. The house can be rebuilt. The life can be rebuilt. All it takes is the courage to demand the door be opened. Anna's story is a terrifying reminder that the deepest betrayals often come from the people closest to us. But it's also a story of incredible resilience and how a mother's fight for her child can bring down an entire empire of lies. That audio recorder hidden in a purse became the voice of justice when Richards was silenced. What do you think was the most shocking part of Selena's betrayal? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, please show your support by hitting that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear a story of survival. These stories matter, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and ring the bell so you never miss a single story of drama, justice, and the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for listening.